everyone. Hi, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here. It's 12 o'clock on the drop. You know what it is. It's tea o'clock. Come on into the tea room. I have my nice peach detox tea today. Things aren't feeling really peachy in the world, so I thought I might create some peachiness in my life. So who's here? Drop me a comment. Let me know what you sipping on, where you're from. I'm gonna get started in just a second. I'm gonna let everyone go ahead and get in. Make sure my phone is on silent. Hi, Lauren, you're here. Hi, Tabitha. Alexia, I hope you got your smoothie since you can't do teas. I understand. So let's go ahead and dive right in because we have a lot to unpack today. Riots of the soul, the invisible protest. I'm going to be really frank with y'all. I struggled with this MediTEAtions today, and I shared this with my guests because it's so personal and so raw, and there's so much going on right now. We are really witnessing an eruption of the corruption, all the stuff that was hidden underneath, right? I think this is a great visual from the New Yorker, and it's called Say Their Names. And it really encapsulates, I think, in a very powerful way, just the journey and the pain of what it is to be Black in America. So when I was sitting with the topic of riots of the soul, riots, something is amiss, and I think we all feel it on a primal level. Some of us are able to articulate it and speak to it. Others are in denial about it. And I'm not really interested in that conversation. I'm interested in what we can do, how we can channel this rage, this energy, this pain, and fortify ourselves on a soul level. You know what I mean? We got soul food, we have soulful music, and just really have the conversation that I don't think we're having. Now, I want to give a context here because I absolutely, unequivocally, and I want to make this very clear, stand behind taking action steps. We need to vote. We need to be in the legislative process and create laws and companies and organizations that support where we're trying to go. And there's another conversation, and this is the invisible protest, the part that isn't seen. And that really, to me, is about looking within. And my guest today is a real treat on this. I'm going to introduce her in just a minute. So it's really about looking within and doing the inner work necessary. And I'm getting some kind of message here. Sorry, y'all, a technical glitch. Because racism and racist systems won't change fully until we have a real transformation in the heart, in the mind. And that's what I want to speak to today. So my core question for all of us, for you and for myself, is what do I have to overcome within myself to move this conversation forward, to create a world that essentially works for all people, Black, brown, yellow, whatever. So I've been sitting with that. I've been struggling with that like you. I've been in these Facebook conversations. I've been called a racist. I've been called everything in the book. So I really have to guard and protect my energy. And this is a safe space in the tea room today to really deep dive into that. So with that said, let me get rid of this right here because I want to give her proper due and proper space. I am super excited to bring to you all my very special guest, Aida Rodriguez, who is one of the 6 comedians who starred in the comedy special Tiffany Haddish Presents They Ready on Netflix. She is a proud and out loud Afro-Latina comedian, writer, actress who made history as the first Latina to appear in both specials, which aired in 1 month, both on HBO and Showtime. She's appeared on Comedy Central's The Nightly Show, and she's NBC's Last Comic Standing Season 8 finalist. What's really amazing about her, she's also the 5-time host of the PBS Imagine Awards and a regular panelist on the Turks. As I said, she's a proud Latina woman of Dominican, Puerto Rican heritage. She wears many hats as a comedian, as an actress, as a mother. And in my opinion, a megaphone of transformation, building a bridge of unity for Black and brown people. Her comedy is poignant. Her writing is poignant. She makes us laugh, she makes us think, and she does that really powerfully in her podcast, Truth Serum. And she definitely drops the truth, which is a weekly wrap up of hot topics. And she does it in a way that only Aida can. As I said, her comedy is profound, and she brings real wisdom and medicine for the soul. She has a catchphrase that says, "I'll say it for you." And she definitely does. And I'm so excited for her to say it to us today. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up my special guest.
Hey.
Aida Rodriguuez. Hey.
What's up?
What's up, Mom? I'm so happy to see you. Thank you for being here with all of us.
No, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The time is now. And I'll just dive right in with the question that you and I kind of touched upon. Who and what do I have to become or overcome in order to move this conversation forward? Excuse me. I'm getting choked up.
It's okay. I get it.
Yes, just going back to that question. What do I have to overcome within myself? And you speak to this so powerfully. So I just want to let everybody kind of feel into this with you.
So I, first of all, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. You're great.
Okay, just want to make sure. So this is my desk. This is where I do my work. And yes. I have a picture of Celia Cruz behind me, who's a very famous Afro-Latina Black woman from Cuba. Reminds me of my grandmother. But I was this picture of myself when I was, I think, 6 years old in that picture. And my life's work has been about rescuing this little girl right here, about going back and just doing some of the work that wasn't done when that little girl was a little girl, that created a lot of these self-image issues that we deal with as people of color. My mantra that I live by, it was given to me by a friend that I went to college with. He said it to me one time and does not realize the impact he made on me when he said that. Because he said, "Aida, the universe agrees with a made up mind." And it's been with me my whole life, my whole adult life. I've had to relearn things about myself spiritually that I wasn't taught when I was little, because I was very young and indoctrinated into religion in a way that was the unhealthy way. So I started studying metaphysics and learning about my subconscious programming and learning about all this stuff that people call like witchy and the spiritual stuff that they try to tear away from us, because it is part of who we are and a part of our wholeness and our greatness. And learning to work from the inside out has been very hard work, especially in a time where everything is polarized and everything is weaponized, right? And so now the people, they're the hoteps, and then they're those are the oil and incense people. And they try to make fun and trivialize the spiritual components that make us who we are, because at the end of the day, we're just energy, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We're just traveling energy. And of course, you're going to tear that down, because if you tear that down, then you tear down. If you tear a person down from the inside out, you take their history, you destroy their spiritual base, that you don't teach them geography. They don't know where they come from. They don't know where they're going. And now you can destroy a people. And
absolutely. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I'm loving what you're saying, and what you and I talked about offline was just the honoring of ancestors. And we come from indigenous peoples and cultures that there's a real reverence for what has come before. There's an honoring of the earth. There's a cyclical circle nature of wholeness, and not this one over, this power over, this I got mine, you get yours on your own. And I think what's happening now on a global scale is that we're having to reconcile that and reckon with that. And I think COVID, regardless of what your perspective on it, has done a good job of bringing that to the forefront, that we are not separate and apart from the earth. We don't have dominion over her. And when we work in concert, in agreement with that, then there's harmony. We're not harmonious. We're not at peace. And that to me is the eruption of the soul. One aspect of it, because it shows up in a myriad of ways. And I love what you're talking about in terms of just bringing back to the center our culture, our identity, and that was stripped, and that was by design, and that's disempowering. And we're seeing the tentacles of that, the ramifications of that.
We're seeing it and in the earth. And the thing is, yes, my grandmother used to tell me, La melanina es divina, which means melanin is divine. And
Mm-hmm.
she was always telling me that's why they always come for it. Because
Oh.
if we were like, they always
Woo,
coming for it, right? Always.
woo.
She said if listen, if we were not magic, they would leave us alone. They would just let us be.
Mm.
But
You
if
know
we,
what? That rings so true for me. That feels so
yeah,
intimate and real. What is the hate of the black and brown body and skin? That there must be magic, like your abuela said. That
yeah.
there's something there. Um,
Absolutely. Look
uh,
at us. We are the children of the sun, right?
mhm,
The sun
mhm,
does not damage us. It is our
mhm,
friend. And if it damages us now, it's because of the damage that's been done to the earth and
mhm,
but it's we are people of the sun.
mhm.
And listen, I don't hate white people. I don't think I don't have to reverse it because my self-esteem is not low where I have to
Yes.
berate white people to make myself feel better because I know,
Speak on it.
you know what I
Right.
mean? I know where I
Yes.
come from. And I feel
Right.
like people who really feel good about themselves do not invest their time in making others feel bad. So
Yes.
there's this thing, this animus towards people of color, because if we
Mm.
know truly where we come from and we honor our ancestors and we
Mhm,
honor Mother Earth and we honor all of the spiritual, layers of what makes us who we are, then we
mhm,
will be
mhm,
truly be unstoppable, right? You talk about black and brown people, people who are ashamed, who have been taught to be ashamed of their glorious ancestors. When you talk
mm,
about
mm,
brown
mm,
people
mm,
who are Latin,
mhm,
they don't want to be called indigenous. It is used as an
mhm.
insult and a
So,
slur,
mhm,
And it's like you feel embarrassed to be called what the glorious kings and queens and
mm,
innovators
mm,
and
mm,
explorers and conquerors and when people say, oh, that we were weak because we were made slaves or we weren't strong enough to be slaves. No, we're so spiritually strong. Our humanity is so full that we're not made up of the DNA to do that to human beings. So of
mm,
course,
mm,
that
mm.
in itself is greatness.
I absolutely agree. And there's this concept that hurt people. And you and I were talking about the inner work that's necessary right now to match the outer protests, to match the
Yeah,
legislation, to match the voting, because by the same extension, healed people heal people. So when
that's right.
we begin to do our inner work and heal, then we change the narrative, we change the conversation, and we change the consciousness around what's possible, envisioning a world that works for everyone. I just have to shout out my mom real quick because she loves Celia Cruz. We've been to Cuba so many times, and she's
Oh,
one of
nice.
my absolute favorites. So my mom was just on here, Cheryl Ward. Let's see if we have some comments from the tea room. Hi, William. Hi, Tabitha. I'm not getting all of my comments here, but anyway, so let's stay back on track because this is really good stuff. So, what are some of the things that you do in your life to move past the blocks that were even put on you? Like you said, honoring that little girl, which I love,
I do.
giving her the space and the healing that she needed, which I'm all for us reparenting ourselves. What are some other things that you do? Share with us how that goes for
So
you.
I read. I do a lot of reading, and I read books by people who. So I tend to stay away from propaganda because, right, like
Mm,
self help propaganda became so profitable that you have a whole bunch of people who are messed up telling you how to heal your life, right? And
mhm,
no diss to Steve Harvey, but you have a man who's been divorced and failed in marriage telling women how they need to go about finding a relationship, which is toxic unto itself. Because when you talk
mm,
about the reality of Black women in America who should be honored and cherished, always being like preached to about what they need to do better and how they need to act better in order to be appeasing and appealing
mm,
to men.
mm, mm,
And so
mm,
I try to
mm.
stay away from all of that kind of propaganda because I feel like it's toxic and it's dangerous. And what I do
Mhm,
is I try to read from the teachings of the people that we never were taught about. Like we were taught about slavery, but Return to the
mm,
Mayflower or Return to the Mayflower.
mhm,
Like when you never read about the books about the slaves who did read right? And the slaves that led revolutions. And because they can't tell you about those, because if they tell you about those people. One thing that I've learned to practice, which has been very, very important for me, is compartmentalizing the people in my life in accordance to the energy that they bring. You know what I mean? So,
Whoa.
because we can't throw everybody away, right? And now this is cancel culture central. Some of our brothers and sisters are making mistakes. And where we come from, where we originally come from, we had a village, and the village took care of its own. But this individualistic thing that is worshipped in this modern day culture of every man for himself is not authentic to our people. So some of our people, we need to say, hey, you need to have a seat right now. Some of our people, we need to, you know what I mean? We got to pull some of our people aside and say, this is not healthy. This is not what you do. When some men are trying and some men are toxic, and we need to know the difference between the two, right? Some men are toxic, but there are some men who are trying. So if I hear the young sisters when they say, it is not my job to educate you. And it is our job to keep each other. We belong to each other.
Yes.
And we need to remember that is who we were before we were brought here. And this individualistic, callous thinking that we have towards one another, and the lack of collective mind and heart and spirit, is what has been taking us down, in addition to all of the systemic ills of racism and oppression. So let me tell you what I read, and I read it again because I love Toni Morrison, because I love magical realism. Sula is a book that I read every couple of years as a woman, because I find a discovery that I discover things about myself every time. Alice Walker's Everyday Use is a short story, and it speaks to the modern day educated people, our people. They go away to college, and then they come home, and now they show the pictures of their slave grandparents and the tools that they use at home as tokens of. But what it is that we've taken on so many of the behaviors of our oppressors that now we behave towards our people the way we do to our own what they've been doing to us.
Right.
So when I read for several reasons. So I read for science, because I like science and I want to understand things from a scientific perspective. I read for fun because I need to be entertained and I want to employ my imagination. I read for spirit because my spiritual soul needs to be fed, and most people who you see are very successful, but they ignore their spirit. They seem toxic, and yet they are. And so I read for those different reasons, and so the spiritual stuff that I read, I try to focus on. I do a lot of metaphysics, and I do read a lot of stuff. But I read all the books. I read the Bible. I read the Quran. I read the Torah. I read the Tanakh, because I wanted to find the commonality, right?
I love that.
And when you start reading all of the books of faith, you will see that universal laws are real and they exist in all of them.
And if you strip away the culture and the context and the time frame that the books were written and just distill it to the information, you find that there's a basic through line throughout all of them. It just depends on what part of the world. If you grew up in Africa, if you grew up in India or China or in America, then we have a unique perspective, a window that we see it through. So in that sense, the world books and world religions are more aligned and alike than they are separate. But we use them to polarize and to objectify and to have power over. Oh, my mom brought up a great one too. Melodome Some of Spirit of Water, who is that's another powerful book. Lauren is saying if he would have come from a place of don't make the mistakes I've made, it may have been received differently. I'm not quite sure what that conversation is, but it sounds
talking about Steve Harvey.
Oh, tell Steve. Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
And Steve Harvey is my colleague, and I don't mean any disrespect to that man. That Black man has built success in this world and has been able to overcome. But what I will say is this. As a brown woman, I consider myself a Black woman who speaks Spanish. I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican. I'm Afro-Latina. But I will say this. Black women have, that Black people are not evil and not capable and they know that we're not evil because they gave us their children to raise.
Right.
And not just now as being made
that part.
And nannies.
Right.
It's slavery. You're not going to turn your baby over to people who you think are evil. So when you talk about Black women, you're talking about the healers, the givers of life, at the cradle of civilization. So when you say this, let's just be clear about where this comes from, because it is important to respect Black women when you speak to them, that you're not being dogmatic and condescending. Because the truth is that spiritually, Black women have been carrying the planet. So when you say, let me tell you about what you need to fix about you, it's like, no, let me tell you what you need to fix about you. Because you wouldn't be here had it not been for a Black woman.
Okay, Ida. All right. I'm trying to find this because that's some tea dropped right there. That you just said a whole word. And I'm making jest and light, but there's some real gravity and power behind what you said. And I'm hoping that all of us and through this conversation, Black women, young Black and brown girls can heal ourselves so that we're walking in this power and this wisdom. I love this interviews where you talk about your children and how you broke generational curses. Yes, of course, as a mom, where you don't spank or beat your children, which is something, that is part of our racial legacy, and how there's been healing in your family line because of that perspective, which is a very controversial issue for our community, which is why I want to bring it to the table.
I came under fire. When I said that, I got criticized a lot. Let me just say to you that when I was about that age, I got hit with a broomstick and my ankle was fractured in the name of discipline. And that is something that stayed with me my entire life. So when you talk about my Black daughter and my Black son, who were born into a world where there is this spiritual war against them, I got to worry about them, because when we talk about this brutality, we neglect Black women, right? There's a long list, and I can provide a long list of Black women who've been murdered by, the state, who've been brutalized. For me to participate in my children's upbringing, I had to make a conscious decision that I was not going to do it the way that it was done, because I know how it affected my self-esteem. Now, what I don't go around is telling people what they need to do with their children, because that's not what I was saying. But right now, you can't say what you feel because somebody's going to get offended or triggered by it. I did not beat my children because I could not look at my beautiful Black baby girl and hit her with something that a slave owner used to hit slaves with. It was not for me. And I felt that our children are highly intelligent. They have a high EQ because they have to have a spiritual sense that white children don't have to have, because they have to survive. I said, I sat through with my kids and I would sit down and have conversations with them. And my friends would say, "You crazy, just pop him." And I'm like, I'm not popping him. He's 2. Eventually, his brain grew into the conversation. And that is how we proceeded from there, where I didn't beat on my kids. And so I didn't want to do that for my children. I don't go around condemning
other people. I get you. I'm the same way. I've received pushback from that as well. I wasn't raised that way. My mother didn't beat or hit us. She talked to us, and the power of her words impacted me, and it would be piercing in my soul, but it was never in a way. My mom did a great job of separating the act from the actor, meaning I may have done a bad thing, but it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. And I think that's a conversation that we have to grow and foster more within our community, that and also just as a whole globally. We have since the 70s, a deep police state where we have punishment and punitive damage versus restoration and rehabilitation. We don't have conversations around that. And I think that's what's kind of happening with this, the global chaos that's happening. And I refer to as healing from our colonial hangover. As we all begin to, navigate and find a new way to coexist that honors the young baby, the 2-year-old, just as much as it honors the Black man and Black woman and the person who loves differently than you. Like, this is all a time, it's all erupting. The corruption is in an eruption because we are at the point where we can no longer move out of alignment with the truth of who we are.
Absolutely. And I love it. And listen, when I talk about that, I don't use that as a way to indict people of color and condemn them, because Latin people do also beat their children. I use it as a point of entrance for information and education, because one of the biggest lies ever told. Well, the biggest lie they ever told us is that the lighter you are, the better you are, right? Because that's how you create systems and where you could just stay in power and have them fighting down there. But one of the other lies that they told us is that we were violent, and that we learned the violence from them. Because you're talking about, and I'm not trying to diss white people, I'm just speaking facts. If you look at history and you look at all of the throughout the world and the history of where Europeans went and colonized people, there was violence from the Caribbean to Central America to South America to Australia, everywhere they've gone. So they indoctrinated us into that violence. And so we think that discipline is violence. And that's where that comes from. And so you watch that scene of Toby, because he wasn't minding, as they said, and my name is Kunta, your name is Toby. Why would you reenact that with your children? That's indoctrination through violence. And that is not authentic to who we are. We have evolved into this for survival reasons. That is not who we are.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here and even say that's not even authentic to who the perpetrators of violence are. Right. I think that they are cut off. Those who, as we said, hurt people, heal people. Those who can inflict that level of violence and hatred, it's because there's an absence of love. And like I said, we are calling forth the transformation of heart and mind and soul. Christy said, yes, that's how we are taught. And Lauren said that was a blotch to pitch Blacks against each other, and it's still working this day. Yes, and I want to bring something to you, Aida. Let me bring this up, which is I found this very interesting. Speaking of color, is this? Can you guys see this? Let me pull it back up. So Band-Aid has just come out, has just come out with new colors representing our colors. Exactly. And I just want to highlight this one company called True Color Diversity and Healing, which actually has been doing this for a long time. Band-Aid just got on the bandwagon. So, okay, we're going to leave that right there. This country saw the need and created, and it's not lost on me. And let me pull out of here so I can come back to see y'all pretty faces. Actually, I want to pull this up real quick. So this is a Black man, and I will find his name. It's alluding to me, so forgive me, who actually got emotional and cried when he put this Band-Aid on his finger. And you know what? The symbolism is not lost on me with that, as we talk about healing and a bandage being a symbol of that even something as simple and basic as a Band-Aid with skin color is not something we've been afforded the opportunity to experience and have space for in this country. Go ahead.
It made me emotional because I'll tell you, as a person, first of all, I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican, right? So culturally, I come from a whole different sector of colonization, right? Which people, for some reason, think that it was easy in the islands. And I don't think they realized what was happening in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and Haiti. There were, they would tie babies to the back of horses and drug them until they died. It was awful. My grandmother is a descendant of a slave. And we're all descendants of the slave in our family, but she can immediately remember who was a slave in her. It wasn't that far from her life.
Right.
So what what we don't talk about, because when we ignore the colorism. And so for me, as a person who speaks from this complexion with this texture of hair, the mother of 2 Black children, who my daughter and I just yesterday had a conversation about how I will never understand her journey and the complexities about the texturism that she has to deal with within our community about her hair. And so when I see that Band-Aid, right, and I think about the privileges that are afforded to me because of my complexion, and regardless of the fact that I have experienced racism and marginalization and bigotry, I will never understand what it feels like to be that complexion and feel that off from a mere Band-Aid. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we have to have these uncomfortable
have that conversation. Absolutely. I totally agree. We've got some comments coming in, so I definitely want to get to those. Craig Ross, who is also my husband.
I know, the director. Yes, exactly. I watched that show in one morning.
Thank you.
Y'all better find a role for me, Craig. I want to be on that show. Listen,
we're gonna do it, honey, and it's on air, so you know. He's saying, how can Black men and women close the divisional gap on both sides?
So you know what, that is where we have to compartmentalize, and we have to close the doors and let the outside noise be outside. We have been infiltrated by this white feminism that does not apply to us. You know, as Alisa Deek, who's a comedian, pointed out the other day, white men even separate themselves from their own women. They call their women minorities. And that with women, they said, no, y'all with them, y'all not with us. And we have been infiltrated by this ideology that isn't authentic to who we are. We come from villages and tribes, and those are good things, not bad things like they try to make us see. We're not savages. We worked as units in Africa. My name is Aida. I'm named after an Ethiopian queen that was a matriarch, we had queens that were running the show, and there was no insecurity about the men. You know what I mean? Like, we have to have these conversations. And I'll say, Craig, because I feel you, women and men of color have to have, we have to have compassion for each other. And when I hear these young sisters saying, it is not my job to educate a man. Well, listen, if you got a chance to go to MIT and that young man is on the street corner based on the realities of his marginalized community and doesn't have the benefit of an education, and you got one, why wouldn't you extend some information to him? Why wouldn't you say, let me talk to you about why it's not okay to talk to your sister like that? Let me tell you what's going on with you. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't owe it to them, but you owe it to us because we're a collective. And we have to stop letting them infiltrate us with these ideologies that are not authentic to our souls. And so we have to have compassion for one another. Black men have to start correcting Black men on the behaviors towards Black women. You know, I just saw, there's a video that I had to send it to Sean King today. A rapper hit a Black young woman in the face with a skateboard, and all his boys gave him a 5 and they were hyping him up. And I was like, this is unacceptable. And it is your job to hold him accountable. We don't need other people to come into our villages and tell us how to police ourselves. We know how to do it. And we go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you emphatically, which is the whole purpose of that, is that we have to, along with the outer directed work that we're doing, the action steps that we're taking, we have to shine the light inward and really look within so that we can heal on a personal, individual level, heal our families and then heal our communities, which goes back to what you're saying, which is educating each other, bringing each other up in terms of how Black men and how Black women talk to each other. But it starts like anything. The most important relationship we'll ever have is the one we have with ourselves. Wow. And somehow we have to heal the fractured soul energy that is in large part due to how we were brought over here and extracted and stolen from our homeland. Our language, our name, our whole identity was bastardized and castorized and mutilated and violated in such a way that we just lost connection to the source and soul of who we are. So these conversations are so important. Your voice is so important.
And listen, I just want to address Fionn Sanders here, who is, it's really interesting when you say that, because I'm very confrontational. He said, when I mentioned race concerns and issues with Aida, she was not interested and actually deleted me from her social media. I find it quite uncanny she's discussing racial issues today with you, Caryn. People, I guess, do evolve in their own thinking and perception. So what I will say to you, Fionn, is that is not correct. First of all, if you go to, in 2007, I wrote a movie called The Greatest Song that Lamont Rucker starred in. I've been talking about racial issues for years. When I was on the Larry Wilmore show, I was talking about racial issues. What you came at me was politicizing racial issues, which I did not participate in. And when you attack me as a woman of color, which I have to get attacked by white men constantly, because I stand on the front lines, not just on social media. My talk is my walk. When I am setting up programs to help with financial literacy within our communities, both Black and Brown, when I am working and funding and helping people with bail money, when I am working with programs of education when it comes to young children, setting up scholarship funds for young Black and Brown girls who are pregnant like I was when I was a teenager, and you come at me to attack me, I am not going to allow you to do that, because I don't allow them to do that. If you want to have a discourse with me, we can have that. We can agree to disagree, because that is of the utmost interest. But I am not available for people to attack me because I don't agree with their stand. I've been talking about race issues since I started in Hollywood, which is why my career is not as big as it should be, because I make people uncomfortable. So your comment is not only misleading, it is also not fair for me unless you are willing to be honest about the way and the manner in which you attacked me. And I bid you peace, because that's what I want for all my brothers, is to be safe. And I commission the angels to take charge over you daily, because that's what I do in my life. And I don't do this for clout. I don't get paid for this. I do this because I have a Black son and a Black daughter, and I am a Black Latin woman, and our lives matter. So I just wanted to address that, because I don't run away from confrontation.
Thank you for that. That was an excellent exercise for me in using your voice, speaking authentically, and setting boundaries, which is something, that I'm working through as I deal with a lot of conversations. I was up until 4:00 in the morning one morning the other day in these conversations. So I'm hoping I'm going to commission the angels and the ancestors
all the
for that
time.
to be
I love
involved in here. Right.
But the conversations that I don't want to have is about how the Republicans and the Democrats and this, because the reason that I feel that those are toxic is because the systems of oppression have been in place with both political parties from the beginning of time. It is a systemic ill. So why am I going to sit down and have conversations about Donald Trump and Joe Biden when there hasn't been an administration that has been beneficial to people of color? You name one. They don't exist. Not even Barack Obama, because the reality of it is that the system was set up to be toxic for us. So I'm not going to have conversations with you about what's my favorite team, or do I like the Red Sox or the Yankees, when all of them have been bad for us. My issue is burn the whole house down, because it's all been bad for us. And so when you want to have that conversation with me, we can have that conversation.
And here's the thing that everybody has to get. Like, everybody has their space that they occupy. You got your lane. Aida has her lane, and you are working it magically and wonderfully. It's exactly who makes us laugh, who makes us think, and makes us feel. So it's okay. I think, Craig and I were actually in a conversation with somebody about all Black lives mattering, and I won't even give that person enough attention or their name, but really kind of bringing down the Black Lives Movement because it didn't care about all Black lives. And I'm like, we're focused on police brutality right now. Like, I'm not asking my brain surgeon to perform my heart surgery, okay? There's a specialization. Everybody has their specialization. Everybody has their part. The beauty of it is when we all work together, then the whole body is healed, okay? But don't expect my podiatrist who handles my foot, that is a podiatrist, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to give me my gynecological exam. I'm just not going to do it. So everybody stay in your lane. Let's all drive down this road together so that we can come to a place of healing. So Alexia said, Aida is a master class in not running from confrontation. Yes, she is. Setting boundaries and teaching how to not come at her. I say that, yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to.
The thing is that, we have to, I'm a stand-up comedian, an actress, and a writer. My activism comes through my art. But I also use my platform because it is imperative that all hands are on deck right now. It is imperative, right? You're a comedian, you play the tuba. We all need to be fighting for our lives, right?
I agree.
So that's what I feel. But don't put the focus on me when Tamika with Black Lives Matter and there are people, Ben Crump, people on the ground that when I go back to set or when I go tape my comedy special, we'll still be doing this work. And we're so focused on celebrity worship right now that we go to Kanye West and Kim about our issues about prison when we need to be talking to the people who don't have 10 million followers on Instagram, who are doing this work every day. And we need to honor those people because they're underpaid, they're overworked, and they show up for us every day. And that's what and they come for me. Why don't you come for Dave Chappelle? Did you criticize George Carlin? So there's this misogynist attitude. I got to deal with the racism, the sexism. I got to deal with it all. And I'm not here for that. You know what I'm here for? I'm here for progress, prosperity, the forward motion of people of color. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for movements and action, not rhetoric on Facebook and Twitter. We get so caught up that we have mass hysteria. We really think we're doing something. We're sending these magical tweets. But then we log off and nothing's changed. You know why? Because this requires action. And those of us who are doing the action want you to move out of the way so we can get to work, because we're not scared to get beat up. We're not scared to get shot. We're not scared to get cussed out. We doing it. So when you come for me, I don't want to hear that. Don't come for me with all of that. I'm out here really doing the work. And I can't tag my children on Instagram because I endanger them when I do that. I can't, I can't post videos of where I am. Do you understand what I have to go through every day? Because unlike you, I actually say the things to the people that it needs to be said to. So when people come for me, I'm just like, I don't have time for that right now. I don't. Our lives right now are in danger.
Yes, we are at a critical junction in history right now, and we have a profound opportunity to really chart and create a different racial trajectory for ourselves. Absolutely. Not looking and mirroring the racial legacy that we have. That happened. It's happened. We understand it. But and I keep saying this probably every time I do a MediTEAtions, like Rev Kev said, you can't heal it if you won't hear it. So I'm using my microphone, my new phone that my husband got for me, which, interestingly, I got to share this with y'all. This is part of what I struggle with doing this show is my husband stepped out yesterday to get a new mic for me, right? He went to Best Buy. Do you know when he came home? Do you know what he told me? He said, babe, I got pulled over. And my heart fell out of my chest. Now, he did not tell me until he got home because he knew that I would freak out. But it really put front and center just how something as simple as going to get a microphone for me could have, if that cop felt, endangered or perceived my husband as this Black man that was going to do him harm, that in an instant, his life and, my two small children, it just, it was a lot. So it really deepens my resolve to do the work, like you said, to actually be in action, not just on, a Facebook warrior behind the keyboard, but to actually be in action and to do the inner work, which is my lane. This is the space I occupy because, like I've said, and I will continue saying, things happen twice. first in the mind and then in reality. So we got to get the mind right. We have to have our talk path aligned with our walk path so that we are moving in the direction that we want for our lives. That works on an individual level and that works on a collective level for our people. My aunt
That's what
is
makes
here.
you a good that's what makes you a good actress, though. It's
thank you.
Because one of the movies that I did, that I actually wrote and produced it. Allegedly I produced, but I wrote it. I wrote the movie, and you auditioned for it, and that was in 2006, I believe. And that same calming spirit that you have, and let me tell you, this has never happened. It had never happened to me before. But when you auditioned for the movie, I was like, she's too good for this. That's what I thought about you. I was like, she's too good. She's too good for this production. And I'm so glad you passed on it, because that's what was me in the room, and it caused a rift with the people that I was working with, because I was like, she's too good for this. Like, she needs to be up there. And I'm glad you didn't, because it was a terrible production, and I did not like how they treated the actors. And I'm always going to be outspoken and who I am. But you've always
thank you for that.
But we need that. The spectrum needs the warriors and the healers and everything in between. Right.
I love that. The warriors and the healers and everything in between. So my invitation, thank you for that. I want to acknowledge that. And yes, and there was something very sympathical about our energy when we met. I don't remember the details, but I do, what's interesting that you're bringing up is I do go with my gut, and I stand for who I am. And that can rub people the wrong way. Setting boundaries and being clear on who you are, what your worth is. I've had conversations. I've had these microaggressive attacks from white men who are basically, in essence, saying, "Don't sass me, girl. Stay in your place." Because when a Black woman, stands up and says, "No, it's X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to clarify some things for you," then there's the perception of the angry Black women, all the other stereotypes that we know about. Kevin Foster, I know you're here, who's a wonderful writer. You mentioned something. Go ahead and put your comment again, because I wanted to address that. So, gosh, this is such a soul-fulfilling conversation, as I knew it would be.
I feel good. You know what it is we're a community. And so just like I addressed the brother that was there, never with the intention of berating him, I think that it is important for us to have healthy conversations, discourse, and confrontation. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to have that. That's how we grow. There are times where I am wrong, and I've said it, and I can say, you know what, that was wrong. I didn't, that's not what I meant. And I understand. I had to say it to my daughter yesterday when we were talking about hair, because I was telling her that I wanted her to go to this, this person to do her hair. And she's like, do you understand what it feels like for you with your hair telling me with my hair where I need to go to do my hair? Do you understand the complexities of it? And it never dawned on me, because I'm talking to my daughter, right? And from my perspective, I'm just caring for my child. And she's saying, my identity is different than yours, and you have to respect it. So, you know what I mean? It's still very interesting, because what we need to do is be able to heal, and we got to have the conversations. And Fionn, I see your long response, but what I'm saying is that when someone says to me that I am new to this conversation about racial injustices in America, it speaks to the ignorance of the person on who I am, because the internet has existed before 2006, right? So you can do the research to see how long I've been dealing with this, right? Even talking about Black and Brown unity, my movie, The Greatest Song, that I did in 2007, was about Black and Brown unity, about the disparities, because I moved to Los Angeles and I saw this big divide with Mexican and Black people. And I'm from the East Coast, where we are the Black people. We're like, what do you mean? What you mean y'all got beef? Like, what is this? Y'all killing each other? And I was like, oh, this is the divide and conquer that we're talking about, right? So we got to be able to have healthy conversations. You can be a Republican, you can be a Democrat. It doesn't matter. If your soul is broken, it don't matter where you are. It doesn't matter who you follow. The truth of the matter is that when when I feel attacked, because I actually show up. I don't ask for money to go speak at rallies. I don't ask for money I barely get paid for, I work so much that my agent was like, you want to just be a volunteer at this point? It is so difficult, to talk to people that always have something to say and criticize you for, but don't have anything to offer in its place. And so for me, when my show Truth Serum, if you notice the videos that I post, from Charlemagne to Van to Killer Mike, it's about solutions. I always post the solutions part. We have the conversation.
And let's have a solution. I love that about your show also. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak because I think it's fun, spoke. And I am going to set some boundaries because I'm not going to hijack this conversation based on that. So you guys are more than welcome to continue that further. No, we won't. And well, that's on you. I'm just saying the purpose of this conversation is really to activate our participation in our evolution, which begins with our involution, going within. So what are some of the solutions? And Craig, drop your comment again. You mentioned something about what we can do moving forward. Lauren, what are you saying, honey? You have a lot of good things to say.
Oh, yes, Lauren. Yes, the Black in America breaks down. I did a conversation with George Ramos yesterday. That is on Instagram.
Awesome.
Yeah, we talked about it as well. There's a lot of, I'm going to post a list of books that show the information about the intersectionality of racism and slavery in the Caribbean and in Latin America. Solutions. So for me, I agree with you. I think that everything begins from the inside out, right? So spiritually, we have to tend to ourselves because we have these political, social conversations and we don't talk about the spiritual components of and taking care of our mental and our spiritual, right? The other thing is, so for me, like I have to actively practice some of the teachings from the spiritual teachings that I was given as a child, and they come from Africa. So I sleep, there's a glass of water under my bed for clarity. And those are the things that I do for myself. But in terms of solution, we have to work on our spiritual collective. We have to spiritually, whether you are, Baptist, if you're Muslim, if you're Black, your spiritual connection is real. And it doesn't matter how they break you up, whether you in Louisiana or Chicago. We have to practice. We have to pray over each other. We have to spiritually connect with each other. We have to feed the spirit of our people. And when we have moments and we have the microphone and we have the opportunity to talk, let's make sure that we address the spiritual and the mental, because that gets neglected in these conversations that are filled with vitriol and animus. The other thing is, I believe in economics. And like I said earlier about these, so I'm actually setting up these workshops of economic empowerment for Black and brown women and low income communities, because it's hard to tell somebody to boycott with their dollars when first they have limited dollars and two, limited resources. They don't understand. So they have to understand the financial the components of what financial literacy means. The other thing is we have to be watchful of one another, right? People are being lynched, right? My son went to Target and called me to let me know he was back home safely, which is something that he should not have to do, right? So please stop videotaping injustices and not participating in trying to stop them, And I know when it comes to the police, that's tricky, but to watch a man hit a woman in the face with a skateboard and see 4 other Black men celebrate him for it, we have to start calling each other out on the stuff that we're doing that's not okay, because it's not acceptable. You have to speak up against the violence against women. And
we do. And I'm glad you're bringing that point up, because I think a lot of what you and I are saying, what we're saying gets drowned and lost in this idea that we're not taking accountability for Black on Black crime and for the, the ills and imbalances that we have within our own culture. Right. So all of it exists. And just because we're focusing on one aspect doesn't negate the other. And I just want to say,
that's a community issue, though. And what I'm saying is that, I'm not going to let a white person use Black on Black crime for me.
Oh, absolutely.
But
here's the thing, y'all. Crimes within communities happens everywhere. Black on Black, white on Black, Catholic against Catholic, which is why you have priests molesting, little boys. So we all do it to each other. The bigger picture is that there's one race that we belong to, the human race. And we've got to do the inner work necessary. And Black and brown people have our own unique, challenges, as do all cultures and groups of people. But I'm focusing on us because that's what we're talking about at the moment. And like you said, we've got to get honest about those and hold each other accountable and really be on the leading edge of what it means to be your definition of a Black man beyond just your race and whatever genitalia you occupy. But what does it mean to be a whole soul person moving in a Black or brown body? And how can you fortify yourself and fortify your sister and your brother next to you? That's really what this is about for me.
And to address what Craig said earlier, his second thing was, two things can exist at the same time, and we have to be able to have conversations of nuance because everything is so extreme, right? So what has happened to Black men in America is horrible, and it is systemic and has been happening for centuries. What has happened to Black women in America is terrible. It is systemic and has been happening for centuries. And at these moments, the elders have to take onus of our rhetoric, our folklore, and we have to inform our young, and we have to be there for them and explain to them and inform them and show them compassion and give them information so that they can honor each other. And so when we talk about, it's such a polarizing issue with Black men and Black women right now. But we have to remember that is all white supremacy's work. It is all divide and conquer. And so when you say, well, the Latinos did this Cuban lady said that, or men do this, as long as we stay there, they don't have to do anything because we're doing the work for them.
I love that. We have just another 2 minutes before we're going to wrap out. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions of myself. My auntie is here. Hi, Diva. Hi, Diva Divine. I see you.
Hi, Diva Divine.
And I love this. I'm going to put this back on because I think this is a true honor that you are the female. Well, I get it. I get the sentiment of it. You are Aida Rodriguez. I want to say that, but I do get.
I got to meet him, and I met Dick Gregory and Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali changed my life. I had lunch with him, and that changed my life. And I do agree with we have to start arming ourselves from the inside out.
I agree also. So. My teammates, any other last comments or questions here? Christy Ferris, I see you. Thank you for being here. Craig is saying, so understanding how racism affects us is the first step for healing for Black men and women. I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
We don't have a lot of people we know because we have a benefit of education, information, and we got out. But there are a lot of brothers and sisters that are still in it. And they don't understand what systemic ills are. And we have to arm them with the information. We have to inform. We have to teach people what the systemic issues are because they don't know. And they feel bad about themselves because they don't have a good education or, they sell drugs, and we have to build them up. We got to build them up. We got to take care of our village. I don't care what the right tell us.
I agree. And like you said, honoring our past, the kings and queens, the regal legacy and DNA of which we all sprout forth from. I think that's a really strong and empowered step in the wrong direction, because if we really know who we are, then we only can act in accordance with harmony and balance and giving and sharing and community and prosperity. You know what I mean? So those things aren't made available unless we're feeling whole. So it's really about accessing that and fostering that, as you said, just teaching our young ones and reteaching ourselves the ways of our indigenous peoples. And and just soul searching, in my opinion, which is what will calm the riots of the soul and really aid this inner protest that's necessary for the outer manifestation of change and transformation.
Such a lovely conversation and approach to have, because I think that this is neglected. And you know, the first 5 things that Black conscious people need to develop.
Great question. Thank you, by the
Absolutely.
way. I'm glad we put this up here.
I think accountability and responsibility is one. We have to, I think it's important for us to understand that we belong to each other. My grandmother used to say that, and I used to think it was so corny. And she was like, no, we belong to each other. And that comes from where we come from. Conscious people need to develop empathy and compassion for others, right? Because when we hear these people who call themselves conscious, they are criticizing other people for not being where they are. And we have to allow people their journeys. Everybody's not going to get it right there. Some people can't even read, and we're trying to get them to be, you know, Cornell West. I think conscious people have, the Bible says, buy the truth and don't sell it. When you have information, share it. Don't hoard it. And break it down for the people so that they can understand it in a way that they can receive it and digest it. If you have an education, good for you. Everybody doesn't have a degree from Harvard. Give it to them in a way that they can process it and understand it and use it, because it's important. Conscious people invest in people who look like them and don't fund their own oppression. Don't invest in the people who are funding your oppression.
And just to wrap this up, Akili Beckwith says compassion is understanding others' lack of understanding. And I think that's what we can call forth, not making it okay, not, you know, placating and lessening the impact of what we all know is happening, but really just moving in a space of compassion for ourselves. And I think I'll add to that, that conscious people live it within themselves first, so that your life becomes a living example of it.
Yes.
It's oozing through your pores. And I think that's the call, the clarion call that we all are rising up into in terms of who we can be as a people, for each other.
I agree. That's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you. I love y'all. I love you. I love what you're doing. Thank you, sis. Thank you so much. This is so empowering. I appreciate everybody who's going to watch the replay. Please like and follow MediTEAtions with Caryn. Go ahead and follow. Let them know where they can catch you, because her truth serum is the truth, y'all. Go ahead and let them know.
So Fridays on, you can go to my Instagram page, Funny Aida, AIDA, and the link will drive you to, you can watch it on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. And it's Fridays at noon Pacific time. I do agree with you about the conscious diet. And I want to say to the brothers out there, please be safe. These lynchings are real. Please look out for one another. I mean, I can't stress that enough right now. There's a war against us, and we win. We win all the wars. We still here.
I agree. Exactly. Yeah, we're still here. I think we have to remember that.
They can't get rid of us.
Right. Challenges and death comes and goes, and we're going to honor those who have, you know, our untimely ancestors. Again, a Rev quote. We're going to honor them. I appreciate the deep ancestral wisdom that I think we fostered and cultivated, all of you here with us. So thank you. I appreciate you guys.
I appreciate every single one of you. I think it's important for us to have conversations.
Oh, absolutely. So I forgot to ask what tea you're drinking, but we'll get to that on the next. Ginger tea, which is really good. Right. Yeah. I've got some detox. So thank you, guys. I appreciate you. And thank you, everyone. I'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Ooh. Yes, that was awesome.